Yeah, it's not. Hang tight, folks. Got to do a little booting. Got to do a little booting. A little sneaking. A little booting. Are you kidding me? That's obviously the role of a productions person. Where do I start? Let's go back from the beginning. I'm serious. I'll go over if I have to. First of all, if you enjoy watching the show, like and subscribe. Take a minute of your time. It is super easy. It does a lot for us when it comes to the algorithm and it comes for sponsorship and advertisers. So I'll go back and cut that later. So do us a favor, if you enjoy it. If you're watching on YouTube, for instance, go on over to Rumble, subscribe there, sign up there, subscribe there, like it there. If you're vice versa, right? The best place, which you probably saw me do, to follow us is right there. We will be doing book club. Of course, they are Sundays, 3 p.m., and that's it. So, right now, that's the fast forward version of what I just said. What I want to get to here is there are several polls that came out that are kind of bombshell polls. And they're not that they are saying something novel themselves. It's just that they are confirming other things that we've been talking about, other things that some pollsters have, detected, but they've been met with skepticism. The one poll particularly I've been waiting on. It is the gold standard in their state. Now, you hear that all the time, but it is actually true of this poll in this state. And no, I'm not talking about Marquette University. That's a joke. All right. They haven't been the gold standard in like 10 years. It is a different state. And listen, this is what I was just kind of pondering before Laura bumped in and said, hey, you're muted. If polls are showing something, right, that's fine. That's one thing. But if a state, because now we're getting all these election models and it's like is it too early? And one jackass on Twitter said, would you forecast the weather 5 days out? Well, it's a good thing that the weather isn't the same as politics, historical, inaccurate analogy, right? We talked about that in my professor's book from back in the day. All right. And all these models are coming out, and it's not that early at all, honestly. And with the tracking poll we used to do, our model came out in July, but with the tracking poll we used to do, it started at the end of June, would roll through until the July 4th weekend. We stopped there. We did not interview there. Then it would come out after the July 4th weekend, typically the first 7-day or 3-day rolling average. It starts as a 7 and then typically moved into the 3-day rolling average, okay? So it's not really that early. And everybody's models are out. They all favor Trump. I'm making a long story short here, except for one, and now one is hurting. And of course, I'm talking about 5-turd fake, all right? There was never any evidence or modeling that you could come up with to give Biden any advantage whatsoever. And this is why I want to say this, because when we get into this poll, others were met with that skepticism. And now this is kind of laying into bed whether or not some of these states really are going to be competitive or are right now. Okay. If a state demonstrates, and I'm talking one of these peripheral states, though, like this is not really a battleground. It's fool's gold for Republicans every year. It's fool's gold for Democrats every year. I tell you this all the time, and I want it to sink into your head. Nothing is consistent about political coalitions, save for the fact that they consistently change. All right. Virginia was fool's gold for Democrats at the presidential level for decades. Georgia was. Nevada was. All right. Nothing ever stays the same. All right. There is no such thing as a state that will be red forever. There is no such thing as a state that'll be blue forever. 100 years from now, if there's still a United States of America, the map will look totally different. And when you're living in the times of the realignment, your instinct, when you follow these things religiously like we do, most of these so-called political analysts, their instinct is to dismiss it or meet it with skepticism, and as you should. But here's what I want you to know. If a state demonstrates its ability to move with the national trend, or worse, for a certain candidate, or both, could be, one or the other at the time, and I'm not picking a party here, or worse, for an incumbent, it moves or is exacerbated by a trend, then you absolutely should not dismiss any hint whatsoever of a political realignment. All right? I just want to lay the foundation with that first. And I'm going to play a clip here because, until Biden, how is Biden going to turn this around? His team seems to think doing more of the same is going to turn it around, and it's drawing criticism even from left-wing networks. So CNN, yesterday was lamenting how Joe Biden is like acting like he's too good to answer a question. All right. Where the hell they've been for 3 years, 3.5 years? Joe Biden is worse than Barack Obama's White House when it comes to transparency. And Barack Obama's White House talked a lot about transparency, and they were absolutely a shadow presidency. The Trump presidency was incredibly transparent. And even left-wing journalists have got to admit that. He was the most transparent president I have ever seen in my lifetime, period. And that includes Reagan, by the way. Bill Clinton was all right. He just came in, he strolled into work late. But if you caught Bill Clinton on the way to somewhere, whether you were a reporter, a person, or something, he'd turn around and be like, oh, come, what? And he'd engage with you. Barack Obama was a king or something. He thought he was like royal blood or something. That piece of shit will walk away from you after he looks you right in the eye. George Bush, one of those structured yuppie class families, if it's not like he did have, those press conferences during the war, especially, remember the shoe got thrown at his head in Iraq, but he would have those press conferences. Here's the problem with George Bush. If it wasn't time to ask George Bush a question, you didn't get one because he's allotted you sufficient time and you should just deal with that. And that's somebody who had a full day, would get up 7:30 in the 7 o'clock in the morning, go for a run. By 9 o'clock, he was always in the White House. And if you weren't there, you were in trouble. Media kind of hates Republicans because they work harder. I'm serious. Barack Obama, he didn't start work either until like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what he was doing. Who the hell knows? Media, the White House correspondents, they're lazy. They're textbook new generation, lazy as hell. And they kind of liked it. They hated Trump because 4 a.m., that light in the residence building went on, the residence section, the wing, went on immediately. I'm not kidding. 4 a.m. every day without fail. And the guy would go to bed late as hell. And the media, guys, if you were in this industry, you would laugh hysterically. Like, oh my God, he's awake already. Like, these are lazy Gen X people. Oh, hate this guy. I'd be on the phone with Steve Ducey at like 5 a.m. Hey, what's up at the curvy couch? The president. He was the most transparent guy and the hardest working guy I've seen in my lifetime. Whether you liked what he was working on or not, irrelevant. You cannot take that away from it. His work ethic is beyond anybody we've seen in the presidency. I mean, some of these and I like Bill Clinton as a president. You guys know that. I take a beating for it from my right-wing audience folks all the time. I don't care. Bill Clinton was a good president in my mind. All right. He changed when it was time to change. All right. Was he someone who favored the policies Newt was pushing? No. But he saw the handwriting on the wall and he did it. Welfare reform, right? Balanced budget amendments or balanced budget proposals, which they passed. But he would stroll in super late. He was like a very, very accurate reflection of the 90s work ethic, which was coming out of the 80s when people did break their butt and people were getting kind of lazy, smoking pot and sitting on their couch playing the new PlayStation or Xbox developments for the decade. I'm not kidding, right? Come on. Watching MTV, right? VH1. That's what they did. And he was very much that kind of a president. But once he got there, now the media, though, even though they may not like to get up at 4 a.m. and cover the president, they want to ask questions. And they're starting to get annoyed by Joe Biden because he dodges them. And he gets nasty. Like, listen, this idea Joe Biden was ever decent, I've said it a million times. I'm going to repeat it a million times more. That was a total sham. That was a total hoax. Joe Biden has always been a world-class prick. But now he's lost some of the humor that came along with his prickness. Okay. And he's just nasty. And we all know why that is. But let's play this. I want to play this clip. And then we come back. We're going to get into it. Because what does this mean? Why does this matter for what we're talking about? What is he going to do to change this, to turn this around? We're going to get into it in a second. In the next segment, consumer sentiment is awful. What is he going to do to turn this around? And when somebody asks him, because listen, he's a failed president. By all definitions, he's a failed president. His policies are unpopular. He's grossly unpopular. He's crapping his pants. He's babbling like a dementia patient. He is a failed presidency. So what is he going to do to change this, to turn this around because in 5 months? Because I just don't see it. And now the media is even getting annoyed too. Let's roll.
Been snippy recently about being asked multiple questions in these press conferences, which we should just be clear, and we're both former White House correspondents. These are very limited. They're called 2 and 2s, and the reporters tend to, there's a tradition of asking more than the questions. Yeah. It's just pretty usual because there are not that many questions to ask.
And follows as well.
That's
you
right.
Didn't really see many there.
And this president has, I mean, he falls far below his predecessors when it comes to interviews and when it comes to press conferences. We just need to be clear about that. They have a lot of questions to ask him, and these reporters do not have many opportunities. They've all dragged themselves to Italy for this G7 summit to do one thing, their jobs, ask these questions.
Yes.
So they're annoyed. You hear that? We actually got out of bed and we went to the G20 summit, and you're not letting us. This is like pointless. This is pointless work for us because we're not allowed to ask any questions. And people are tired of it. They're tired of it. First, I want to read something. The very first paragraph. The reason why I picked it to read, the very first paragraph is going to accurately characterize where we are in the state of this race, okay? And everyone's frustrations with Joe Biden, okay? This is from the Wall Street Journal. Virginia hasn't backed a Republican for president in 2 decades. Is it about to flip? All right, why? Where are we getting this from? I mean, look. It's not up on Real Clear Politics yet. There is another poll in Virginia, and it shows a tie. That is now 3 polls in a row. You had the Roanoke College poll that had it. By the way, Roanoke College slightly overstated Biden, but for the most part in 2020, they nailed it in Virginia. Okay. It tightened like 1 point from their second to last poll to their last poll. So a very steady state of the race in the state of Virginia, and they got it right. So for the tiny crystal balls out there who attack them, your arguments at this point are just asinine. Folks, it's not worth reading Larry Sabato's crystal ball anymore. And that doesn't make me feel good to say. But I don't know, Kyle Condon over there, I used to very much enjoy reading him. He is, a lackey of the entire machine over there. Larry has lost his mind. He is out to lunch. He's a vicious, nasty hack. And it doesn't matter how often he's going to be wrong. He's just going to continue to keep up with this BS, right? Even him, though, was a little bit more bullish on Trump than 538. But both of these people have Arizona, for instance, and Georgia like toss-ups. Folks, let me give you the reality of this. If Virginia is tied, the Sunbelt states are not toss-ups. And in fact, Joe Biden hasn't led in a single poll in Arizona in like a year in the aggregate. And by the way, for 6 months, Donald Trump's lead has been outside of the aggregate sampling era. So the idea that, because let's face it, what are their models really built upon, guys? With the exception of the decision desk, what are they built on? What has their history taught us? That they ignore fundamental variables that go in election forecasting in favor of knee-jerk reacting to the polls. Now, all of a sudden, they're not knee-jerk reacting to the polls. They're thinking about fundamentals. I call BS. They're hacks. End of story. Anyway, let's get into this. Virginia. Front Royal Virginia. Very first sentence. Whether Virginia backs Donald Trump or Joe Biden shouldn't even be a discussion. I mean, we could end the episode right there, and you would have a full understanding of where the current state of the 2024 U.S. president election is right now. If we're talking about Virginia, Joe Biden is going to lose. When was the last time we were talking about Virginia? 2016. When was and actually the polls favored, there's no doubt, the polls favored Hillary Clinton. But when the results came rolling in and it was too close for anyone to call, was it a good sign for Hillary Clinton or a bad sign? This is very simple. Now, there have been a couple of things that have happened in Virginia. You have the Virginia Project. Give the shout out to these guys. They are, you know what, and taking names. Everyone beat on the Republicans in Virginia for that off-cycle performance with the state legislatures. Well, guess what? They won everything Biden plus 12 and below. That's not bad. Not bad. That's good. Them and some other groups have, sunk money in, sunk time and effort in, and they actually have a voter turnout operation there now. The Republican establishment fell asleep on Virginia over like a 35-year period. Nobody was doing anything. It's the Old Dominion. They're never going to vote for a Democrat. Hello? Northern Virginia, economics is politics? Of course they will. The state hasn't backed a Republican for president since George W. Bush in 2004. But early polls showing Trump, the presumptive Republican nominee, cutting into the Democratic president's lead, has served as a wake-up call for Virginia Democrats who acknowledge headwinds with voters dissatisfied with Biden's leadership. Republicans say that if Virginia is even remotely on the table for Trump, Biden is in serious trouble in traditional battleground states such as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. This is not a say or this one claims. Folks, Wisconsin was almost 11 points more Republican than the state of Virginia. Michigan was 13 points, was 7 points more, a little over 7 points more Republican than the state of Michigan was a little over 7 points more Republican than the state of Virginia. Pennsylvania was nearly 9 points more Republican than the state of Virginia. Quote, I think Virginia can be a real possibility for Republicans, said Sarah Chamberlain, the president of the Republican Mainstream Partnership, a group that supports center-leaning House Republicans. Northern Virginia is so Democratic, and that's where the numbers are. So I'm not there yet on Trump winning it. But, she added, the Trump team is doing the right thing, and let's see how it all plays out. I think that's a fair assessment. According to a Roanoke College poll conducted in mid-May, which then was followed up by the Fox News poll and the latest one that we got just late last night or this morning, Trump and Biden are tied at 42% each. The Fox News poll, which was done from June 1st to the 4th, also showed them tied. I believe it was at 48. In April, the Trump campaign offered a less bullish assessment, saying internal polling showed Biden with 48% of the vote in Virginia, while Trump would get 44 in a head-to-head matchup. And that, honestly, is not a bad play. To have your pollster a little bit more bearish than some of the public polls, nothing wrong with that in a campaign. Keeps you on your toes. Keep you running like you're 4, 5, 10 points behind. Quote, not only is President Trump dominating in every traditional battleground state, but longtime blue states such as Minnesota, Virginia, and New Jersey are now in play. Trump campaign National Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this week. There's another one, too, on the table. It's a big deal. Democrats have won Virginia in every presidential election dating back to 2008 when Barack Obama won the state. That year represented a historic shift for a state that had sided with Republicans for every election since 1964, when it helped propel Lyndon B. Johnson to the White House. Now, we were just talking about Northern Virginia. There's two groups that obviously we have to pay attention to. There are non-whites. There's a significant black population in Northern Virginia. There are Hispanics in Northern Virginia, of course. And the shifts among them could cause real damage for Trump in areas in and around Fairfax, if that really ends up being the case. Even in the burbs, such as like Chesterfield in Central Virginia, there are affluent black voters. And if Trump is really doing this much better with them, this will be a serious problem for Joe Biden, because this is what happened with Glenn Youngkin, coupled with monstrous turnout from the white working class in the Shenandoah Valley, right? Also, white college-educated voters that have been shying away from the Republican Party recently, and not just because of Trump, they have been for a while, are now giving Trump another look. In that Fox News poll, he was only down by 2 among this vote. If that's the case, yes, that race will be like damn near a toss-up. Democrats have won it, like I said, after it flipped. 2 Democrats with Obama since, it's the first time they carried it since 1964. Obama's victory was attributed to many factors, including population increases in the voter-rich Northern Virginia, close to Washington area. All right. While in office, Trump grew so unpopular in Virginia, particularly in the Washington burbs, that Biden won the state by a margin of 10.2 percentage points, the widest margin since Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1944. Oh, let's not forget about mail-in voting, shall we? There isn't even signature verification in Virginia. There's not. Or there wasn't in 2020. It's a little different now, but it was a witness system, which is, of course, a joke. Fingerprint. If we could put our fingerprints on our keyboards, if we could put our fingerprint on our apps, or maybe even facial recognition software, there is absolutely no reason why we cannot implement a fingerprint or facial verification system. Forget about signature verification since it's not extremely scientific anyway. I mean, it's certainly better than nothing. But guys, what are we doing? The most advanced country in the world, supposedly. We're supposed to be the beacon, which is a joke. You know that. You know I believe it's a joke. Most of you are smart enough to realize it's a joke. Persecuting political people. I was talking to a friend from Scotland the other day. He's like, are you going to stop lecturing us now? Is America going to stop lecturing the rest of the world since you're trying to imprison a former president because he's kicking the current president's ass? And this is a guy who gets nothing but tainted, left-wing skewed, anti-Trump propaganda press 24/7, day in and day out. Have you ever been to Europe? Listen to the media over there during the Trump era? They hate Republicans in general, but have you ever listened to the media while you're abroad? It's just nothing but Trump venom 24/7. Even he gets it. We're mobilizing voters in every corner of Virginia and looking forward to beating Trump for a third time in November, said Jake Rubenstein, the Biden campaign state director for Virginia. The third time, huh? What the hell does he mean? On Wednesday, Trump met with Virginia Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin to discuss the ground game strategy for Virginia, particularly in the areas where Youngkin won big in 2021. Victories the Trump campaign thinks it can expand on, according to a person familiar with their meeting. Well, they can. If they play this right, they keep listening to Chris and Susie, and Trump is disciplined, they absolutely can play this right. And this is me saying this. Why? Because the numbers are the numbers, guys. The numbers are the numbers. 22% of the black vote in all in two of the three polls in Virginia. Even if he gets 15 or 16, Joe Biden is in deep crap if he can hold down the gains with college-educated whites. He's going to run it up like Youngkin ran it up with white non-college educated voters all over the southeast, the South and the southwestern mountain region part of the state. He's going to kill it. And it's true. It's not as vote rich there. But if Democrats are not winning 80% of the vote in Fairfax County, it may be a serious problem. If Democrats are not beating Trump 60-40 in Loudoun County, it may be a problem. Trump was asked by Fox News on Thursday if he would consider Youngkin to be his running mate. He said he's great, and I think I could consider that, yes. While experts think Virginia remains a presidential Democratic stronghold, I would not call it a stronghold. That is not an accurate assessment. Illinois is a Democratic stronghold. California is a Democratic stronghold, okay? Washington, Oregon, Democratic strongholds. I would not call Virginia a stronghold. That's too much. Including the eastern cities, the Beltway population centers, including the eastern cities of Arlington and Alexandria and eastern Fairfax County, are virtually impenetrable Democratic blocks. That's true. Senior officials with the Trump campaign and the state Republican Party said Virginia Beach, Virginia's most populous city, is in play, I would agree, as are western Fairfax and Stafford counties. That I would agree with. Biden won them all in 2020. That's true. He did. But things change. He's making a play for black voters, diminishing enthusiasm for Biden. There's huge blocks in Northern Virginia that absolutely cannot stand the out-of-control immigration and the conflict in Gaza. Younger voters and progressives are going to be turned off by this stuff. Black voters are hating on Biden's immigration policy right now, and they're not going to be swayed by Biden's fake executive actions because they're still going to have to be the ones who live with the consequences. More than anyone else. Everyone will have to live with the consequences, almost. But the downtrodden will get it the worst. If money actually starts flowing in, it would be more telling that there really is an effort by the people to flip it, or if or by the Biden people to feel like they really have to defend it, said Kyle Condon, election analyst at the University of Virginia Center for Politics. There's Kyle. That is that's a correct statement. But I do know that the effort by Trump is serious. I know that to be a fact. Give them time. It's coming. It's just that there are other targets to hit right now first, and you play your hand you play the hand that you're dealt. Biden is defending Minnesota right now. Trump is on the offense in Minnesota. Trump is running ads on black radio in I don't want to say experimental, peripheral battleground states such as Minnesota, such as Virginia. Okay. Another one of these states that we're going to discuss is like white as white can be, but it has a very long history of white progressivism. So that's what makes it, I would say, white populism that has benefited unfairly in many times, has benefited progressives who love to wrap themselves in the blanket of populism, or used to. And of course, that's not remotely true anymore. So it's getting harder and harder for some of them to do it in two of these really very key important states that have large white populations. All right. Trump Force 2047. They're standing up Roseby. They're putting up the robust field operation, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, of course, from Susan Swecker from the Democratic Party is the one who really said that, we're not that worried, right? And inflation, she acknowledges, is a problem for Joe Biden. But unemployment is low, and he's giving student debt relief to millions of voters. That's going to motivate them. He's not gonna. I mean, yeah, she's arguing that Youngkin's victory came before the action on student loans, and that was a wake-up call to Democrats. Okay, but not everyone's going to get that relief. And I'm telling you, the wealthy white voter who could potentially swing in Loudoun County, for instance, they will not qualify for what the program that Biden is advancing. They won't qualify. I don't qualify for it. And those people make more than me. I do not qualify for it. With 3 kids, a wife, and a mortgage, and less of a salary. Well, I don't have any salary. It's a business. But you know what I mean. Less than an income that they have. Laura, any way to get some water? I thought I had water here. Is it possible for you to get me some water? Just chuck it at me. I don't care. I'll catch it. Football field type stuff. Thank you. And I'm looking for this other one right now, which is huge. But I mean, my God, even the Mammoth poll has has Biden down. And since when has Mason Dixon began to poll Minnesota? Like, where the hell did that come from? Right? They don't poll Minnesota. Oh yeah, chuck it to me. Oh, no Essentia? This is too salty for me. It's less salty than Aquafina. I was gonna say I love you. I know there's Essentia, but it's cool. It's cool, baby. It's cool. And I'm not talking to my wife like that. That's my daughter. Blah 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 blah. Coefficient. That's the latest poll in Virginia, and that did come out last night. So excuse me. Coefficient was the latest poll, and that had it at 41. I want to make sure I'm not going to show some personal information. We don't have to go down the line here with everything, but this is a good article. You should check it out. The abortion thing is something else that Democrats think that they can use. Listen, if Hillary, let's throw this back on Kyle Condit for a second. If Democrats really did believe that that state was totally out of reach for Republicans, would Hillary Clinton have picked Senator Tim Kaine to be her running mate? Right? So let's listen to some of these people. Fern Vasquez, 76, a Democrat from Chesapeake, said she would vote for Biden and thinks another Trump president would be awful. But she worries about that many people feel like the economy isn't working for them and it might hurt Biden. Well, it's working for her because of where she is and who she is. It's not working for them. If you want to buy a house, you can't buy a house. The middle class used to be able to get there, Vasquez said. So then why are you voting for Joe Biden, Ms. Vasquez? Think about it. Use your brain. But Carolina Lebarona, 39, a Democrat who lives in Linden, west of Washington, asked Kaine at his event, that was Tim Kaine, by the way, why Biden hasn't done more to prevent children from dying in Gaza. Emotion coloring her voice. She said she might consider a third-party candidate or just skip voting. I can't vote for Biden this year. Liberona said. And that's how it ends. The next thing I want to show you real quick, because obviously we just talked about the polls in Virginia, the way they are, but we're going to move on here because I've been waiting for this poll for months. They normally do a quarterly poll. Here's the headline of it, and we are going to look into the report here. It is the Critical Insights on Maine, the Voice of Maine poll. It is conducted by Digital Research Inc., or DRI. This is the spring of 2024 poll. Let's look at the headlines before we get into the districts. And hold on, let me just get a sip of water. Wow, 12:40 already? Okay. It was up in the air about whether or not ranked choice voting would even be allowed this year in this election. We will get into that in a little bit, but if ranked choice voting is the biggest scam. It is the biggest scam in the world. It is meant to it's one of those scams like that is, talk about colored. All the hallmarks of the progressive era. All the hallmarks, it's just unbelievable. In any event, hold on one second. Anyway, all of the hallmarks of the progressive era. What do I mean by that? If you do have populist sentiment raging through the electorate, you can exploit it. It's true. That's why populism, you do have to be careful with it. Although I do think I think that Troy Olson and Gavin Wax in their new book are right. I think that populism is the default ideology has been forever in the United States of America, dating back to the revolution, which was a revolution of ideas from the bottom up, from Yeoman farmers taking up arms to pastoral leaders, Protestant zeal burning on fire. Anyway, these people were not ruling class. They were not powerful people. And certainly were not secure in their station enough to do what they did without having to worry about losing everything. In any event, I think they're right in that is true, but you do have to be careful about people exploiting that. So the Gilded Era, for instance, the Gilded Age, where you had the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, right? The titans of industry. I love it personally. I think it's a great period in American history. However, if there's too much, there will always leave an opening for people to argue or exploit the fears and the disadvantages of the little guy. And we got labor unions, which became ridiculously powerful. And now there are some that, of course, are useful and have a benefit. But it certainly was built or build BILLED. It was billed as a pro little guy movement, and it was not. It was a movement run by powerful people, left-wingers, radical left-wingers, exploiting the anger of and the populism or the populist anger of the electorate. The 17th Amendment and the 16th Amendment, the log rolling deal that really got them both through, never would have gotten through in the early progressive era or the early 20th century during the progressive era if it was not for a populist anger that people exploited, such as the obvious series and the cosmopolitan treason in the Senate. Okay. This is something you constantly have to be on guard for, and ranked choice voting is one of them. It is always billed as, this is for the little guy. This is that is a total line of crap. In this Senate race in Alaska, for instance, what was it? Was it for the little guy, or was it for Lisa Murkowski, who has absolutely no prayer of winning a traditional election or a primary? Her own aide spearheaded the effort to make sure that would get changed. They gave Maine to Democrats, even though their entire economy is reliant upon energy that Democrats want to get rid of and abolish. They gave it away just so ugly ass crooked Lisa Murkowski can keep her job 10, 20 years after she should have been expelled. Lisa Murkowski would have been gone against Joe Miller if the people had their way. So talk about the little guy, but they broke the rules. And They didn't really break the rules. She's allowed to write as a run-in, but Karl Rove making deals with Democrats to abandon the Democratic nominee to write in Lisa Murkowski to keep her there is textbook establishment ruling class, effery. You know what I mean? And ranked choice voting is no different. But with that said, it's still very, very, very close, which is in the state of Maine, which is a real problem for Joe Biden. Before we get into the report itself, the first round of voting is Trump +1. The final round is Biden +2. That is way too close to call. Although DRI has a history of nailing things on the button. All right. But there was a poll that was Trump +6, Pan Atlantic University. And here's the issue with Pan Atlantic, typically understates Republican support in areas of Maine. So, taken together, it is, it's something. This is incredible that we're even here. Look at the job approval of Joe Biden. Do you think that 2-point margin is enough to save him from a 32% approval rating? I mean, it's true that Susan Collins has been able to survive, even though in 2020, she had a terrible approval rating in this poll as well. She was able to hold on, even though the polls, except for this poll, had her losing. But her unfavorable is not disgusting like Biden's. Her unfavorable is not even a majority. Biden, 57% disapprove of the job that Joe Biden is doing. Only 32% approve. That's an awful, awful approval rating. All right, with that said, it's 12:45. Let's bring this up real quick. We'll go over the methodology real quick, and then we'll have to take a quick break. All right. But let me read you the background because I think it's important. Each spring and fall, Digital Research Inc., or DRI, conducts the Critical Insights on Maine tracking survey, a comprehensive statewide public opinion poll of registered voters in the state that covers a variety of topics of interest to business leaders, policymakers, and the public at large. Critical Insights on Maine, trademark, has been documenting the attitudes, perceptions, and preferences of Maine's residents for more than 25 years, making it the longest-running, consistently administered tracking survey in the Northeast. And it's a great survey. In addition to general interest items, the results of which are released to media outlets through this report, the Critical Insights on Maine survey also serves as a vehicle for interested parties to include proprietary questions in the poll, the results of which are provided only to sponsoring entities. So they have an omnibus model. We chose not to go that route. We chose to go the total crowd-funded model, which, by the way, I got a commitment for a G if we don't make it fully. So if you can get us within a G striking distance, we will be able to track this weekend. If not, we won't, but we'll still be very close. But I forgot to mention that. I did mention it in the open, which was muted, and I forgot to re-mention it. But let me just say this again. We do have somebody who's committed to putting money in if we can get within it. So share it. And this is a contributor. This is a viewer who contributes often. So let's see if we can't get closer, even closer than that. Like I said, the goal of sharing it, do what you can, of course, as far as contributing. But the goal of sharing it is to relieve the burden of the same couple hundred people every month. All survey participants were required to be registered voters in Maine. By the way, its sample is 609. 300 were surveyed by phone, 309 were online, and it's April 8th to April 30th. It is not uncommon for this poll to be a 3-week poll. Maine is a difficult state to poll. All right. Final data reflect the demographic makeup of Maine's voting population and were statistically weighted to appropriately balance results according to gender, age, level of education, geographic region of residence, and voter registration profile. And here's the deal. They're trying to make sure that they do account for some things like what we just heard from Ms. Vasquez in Virginia. All right, so 2 points with Biden's malaise right now and lack of motivated voters is nothing. Nothing. The entire survey took the average participant less than 15 minutes to complete. including both the general interest questions reported here as well as the proprietary items included on behalf of sponsoring entities. So they must have had quite a few people give to the omnibus option here. And maybe we should start doing an omnibus option. It's just, I'm telling you, you know what's going to happen? Media is going to say, okay, I'll give you $2,000 for this question. I'll give you $1,500 for that question, whatever. And it's going to become like a stock jobbers club or something. And I really don't want to do that. I want this to be like the people's poll. It's called the Public Polling Project, but I want it to be like the people's poll. Anyway, less than 15 minutes is decent. We like to keep our interviews, and seriously, anywhere between 4 and 8 minutes. All right, so here's the sample profile, and then we'll have to take a break, and we'll get into what the results actually say. It is 50% female, 49% male, 1% non-binary. Less than 1% chose not to answer. I disagree with this vehemently. You know that, guys. You have to pick your gender. Number one, there is the part of me that says I'm not going to suffer this delusion. Number two, and more importantly, is that you have nothing to weight that against. You don't have an accurate measure of the population, whether it's state or nationally, that truly characterizes itself as non-binary. No exit poll has been doing that. No census has been doing that. Nothing. All we have is male, female, because you're either born with a penis or a vagina in this country, all right? And that is the way that data has been based and supported for decades upon decades upon decades. This idea all of a sudden that I'm telling you, I know how this happened. Somebody who paid for an omnibus question wanted that shit in there. I guarantee you. Just like Emerson, Spencer doesn't believe that crap. He can speak for himself, but give me a break, Spencer. You're going to come on Inside the Numbers and tell people that you believe in that and that sound statistical practice. It's not, and you friggin' know it. But in order for you to get your grant over at your college, you had to add that, didn't you? This is not sound survey practice. 2 districts, the first and the second, each 50%. Democrats, it's a D+5 electorate, which in Maine is not all that much anymore. Other, 6%, unenrolled, 28, not answering 2. I make you answer. Period. Under 35 is 24%. 35 to 44, 16%. 45 to 54, 14%. 55 to 64, 20%. It all looks good. Less than a 4-year degree, 65. It's white and very, non-college educated Maine. This is the problem for Democrats. All right. But with that in mind, we're going to have to take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll go over what the poll says. Stay tuned. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host. Don't forget to like and share far and wide. Like and share far and wide. More after the break. Stay tuned. Enjoy the tunes. Be back in a minute and 15 seconds. Not until I check it out and make sure it's not going to blob all over my floor. All right. You know those things? The kids, the blobs. You know what I'm talking about? These things. It's a great way. It's a great way to screw over your carpet. No, sir. All right. Welcome back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them. And of course, to share them far and wide. Okay. If you're on locals, you're good. Stick there, stay there. You're good to go. If you are, however, on YouTube, it would be a great help to us if you would mosey on over to locals and sign up, become a supporter, or mosey on over to Rumble and subscribe. Like, do it all. It helps us tremendously. And I was running. Laura's like, hurry up, 20 seconds, hurry up. So there it is. Of course, the best place again to follow us is always on locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. Which one first, Laura? Which one first? Let's go. Oh, before we get back to this poll, awful. And I understand it's a gift and I really appreciate it, but we're not giving it to them. It's not happening. And I appreciate that sending them, but no, not a good idea. Let's see. Again, with the public polling project, sharing far and wide, I'm not missing anything. Check out, we'll be doing the Turning Point USA straw poll. That's another announcement. It starts tonight. The event starts tonight. The convention is in Detroit. If you guys, this weekend, it's a huge event. It is going to be a very interesting straw poll, so stay tuned. All right. What else could I say? I feel like I'm forgetting something here. Sunday, the reality check with Sebastian Gorka, Sunday show. I will be on with Chris from American Greatness. So good segment. Don't miss it. I believe that is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Keep an eye out for my Twitter. I'm going to post it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But right after, basically a little bit after book club. All right. And a little bit after book club. All right. The Consumer Sentiment Index, the Survey of Consumers is really what it's called. Inside is the Sentiment Index, the Expectations Index, right? This is bad. Very bad. If we have time, we'll go over it. I would rather go over the main poll, but listen, you know what? I don't think we have that much time to go through all of the crosstabs of it. I just want to say this before we move, because I want to go over the consumer sentiment. This is a perfect example of a state that has in fact moved with national trends, and in parts of the state, in fact, it's been exacerbated by those trends, like the 2nd congressional district. And Biden's lead in the 1st congressional district has considerably evaporated. I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's what's making this a tight race in the state of Maine. You have Trump more popular now than Biden in the state. His retroactive approval rating is more popular. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris, this is something I got to bring this up. This is, post-presidency, Trump is at 43% now. He used to be at 30. In the fall of 2023, his approval rating, his retroactive approval rating in the state of Maine was 38 approved, 53 disapprove. It is now 43 approved, 49 disapprove. And Joe Biden is 32 approved, 57 disapprove. So how secure is that 2-point lead in the state of Maine for Joe Biden? Good luck, homie. Good luck, homeboy. And the idea, like, we just keep making this a likely Democratic state on these fake ass models is ridiculous. After one blown election after another with the polls, by the way, constantly understanding Republican support, even polls that suspected Susan Collins was going to win or projected she would win because she was down in the aggregate. Most polls had Susan Collins down. She wound up winning handily. They understated her as well, even the ones that did have her winning. I think it is a major mistake not to put Maine right now in a toss-up 50-50. It's coin flip. I think a total coin flip. Trump has improved almost twice on his margin in the 2nd congressional district, and the 1st district is close. And if that's the case, or closer, I should say, and if that's the case, he could win the state statewide. There's no doubt. Even with ranked choice crap, it's very, very close. In a straight up race, Trump's would win. I mean, it's right there. So, I really want to take a look at the map But before we do, I have to do this. I mean, I told you we were going to do more economic stuff, and I feel like it makes sense to do the economic stuff so we understand all of this impacts elections, obviously. And I know that we take that for granted sometimes, but it's the reason why in this next poll that we can get, if we can get it out in the field, I'll do it this weekend. We've got to do the registered voter economic confidence index again, because there has been a debate about the predictive value of some of these consumer sentiment and confidence indexes. There's a lot of research suggestion that, in fact, there is predictive value to it. So what we did was instead try to account for the fact that often it's really who votes. You know that. We all know that. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. You know that. All right. So it's a matter of who votes as well, not so, not only what maybe the approval rating of the president is in the entire country, or, what the consumer sentiment is in the entire country. So in order to try to reduce the possibility of it being less predictive than maybe a prior election or one election to another, we cut the target population to just registered voters. So at least we're not sampling adults who may not even vote, right? All right. So let me put it up on the screen, and it's small there. You can see I shaded it in gray. This is crap. The preliminary reading on consumer sentiment is 65.6% for the month of June. What a load of shit. I'm sorry. And here's the kicker. Year over year, it's actually up 2.2. Month over month, it's down 5.1. But year over year, that's an improvement. So if you're wondering, oh, why don't people feel this? Just 5 years ago, we hit an all-time high right before Christmas. Everybody was happy. Actually, 6 years ago, I'm sorry. Everybody was happy. Things were good. Even Democrats were starting to it was starting to become the fact that they're forced to admit that the economy is, in fact, better than they want to admit. This became a weird phenomenon during the era of Joe Biden. I mean, Barack Obama. Democrats would just be living in another world, an alternate reality. Oh, the economy's great, when the rest of the country would admit that it was crap. Then during Trump, we're hitting every historical high known to man in every indicator reported in economic news, and they're saying the economy's shit. It's weird. But just 6 years ago, I went and looked. The summer was good too. But the holiday before, look at 18. Look at the data in 18 and 19. Delicious. That's all I can say. That's the word I would use. Those numbers are delicious to me. And now it's all gone. It is all gone. Anyway, as is Richard Curtin, apparently. The hell happened to him? So, Joanne Sue, right? That's how you say it? Replace Richard Curtin? Consumer sentiment was little changed in June. This month's reading was a statistically insignificant 3.5 index points below May and within the margin of error. Sentiment is currently about 31% above the trough seen in June of 2022 amid the escalation of inflation. And yet, folks, it's still in the dumps like this. Go to peoplespunditdaily.com and go type in record sentiment. And you will see no less than 10, maybe 12 articles. Record set, record set, record set, record set, record set, record set. New record. Historical high. It's sad. It's just sad. It's sad. It actually makes me sad. It does. Assessments of personal finances dipped due to a modestly rising concern over high prices as well as weakening incomes. Excuse me, Miss Stu. That would be called inflation. They just can't use the word. The only time they use the word is when they try to put a spin on it that it's better so it can politically benefit Joe Biden. What you're saying is, Joanne, that personal finances dipped, and we have a sub indicator or a sub index exactly like this one. What you're saying is, this month people told you that their personal financial situation was worse and that they fear that inflation is going up again. They are not going to make enough money to keep pace with it. That is what you're saying. And by the way, the word is inflation. Overall, consumers perceive few changes in the economy from May. Wow, what a spin. I thought Richard Curtin was good at this. This woman puts a new level on it. Somebody bring back Rich from retirement. I miss the days of only his half partisan statement. Year ahead inflation expectations were also little change this month at 3.3. Hello. That's higher than the pandemic range. And again, that's another lie. After the shutdown, V-shaped recovery. Even inflation went back to its normal aggregate 2%. Long run inflation inched up 3.1. The June reading should be interpreted as essentially unchanged. Okay, I got you, Joanne. Long run inflation expectations have been remarkably stable over the last 3 years, but remain elevated relative to the 2.2 to 2.6 range seen over the 2-year pandemic. All these patterns are visible when looking at trends with phone interviews alone or web interviews alone, and they are not artifacts of the survey's methodological transition. Now, that's a damning statement. Now, I'm sure she decided it was okay to release because very few people would understand what she's really saying. But if you're watching inside the numbers, you know what she just said. We talk about artifacts all the time. You understand what she means. It is so widespread that she was unable to detect any significant difference in the mode of data collection. Considering that these modes will experience higher participation rates with certain age groups than others, it's like everybody everywhere is experiencing the same long-term concern. The same concern over long-term inflation. It almost doesn't matter at this point to consumers what the month over month is because they know the hole we're in. Due to inflation becoming a real problem under Joe Biden, it only makes sense that a lot more people decided to just learn what the hell does inflation mean? What is it about? How will it impact me? And by the way, what causes inflation? Which is why even if inflation were to level off, Democrats are worried that Joe Biden won't get the credit for it. Well, why would you? He went in and passed another unnecessary $5 trillion CARES Act package that was really a kickback to his donors and benefactors who got him in office through one mean or the other. Trump already gave him. The school thing, perfect example of a total fraud. I mean, that is fraudulent behavior. To argue that Biden was needing to fund the schools to reopen is a fraud. It's a con. The schools were already funded by CDC standards by the last package bill that was the last pandemic relief bill that was passed or signed by Donald Trump, passed by the Congress, signed by Donald Trump. They double dipped, folks, went to the unions. They took your kids' money. Actually, they took your money that they told you was going to go to your kids. I don't know why you just couldn't have spent it on your kids directly. Does that make sense? But anyway, they took it and they gave it to their friends and told you it was for your children. So no wonder, where are we at? That's critical. There it is. No wonder even one of the worst election models on the internet now has, as of today, they simulated, Laura. They simulated. Our new simulations. We ran 1,000 new simulations, and for the first time this morning, Trump took a lead. Okay. You got eviscerated by criticism because you were the only model who even had Biden up or had Biden with, I think they started with a 53% chance of Biden winning. You got eviscerated Your ass is handed to you by like intermediate to beginner poll observers who destroyed you. It was hilarious. I read almost every single one in your original post. Arizona and Georgia. Okay. Mitt Romney and unskew the polls. Neil Newhouse. All right. It's like, could you imagine in 2020? By the way, this day in history in 2020, I tweeted it before. This day in history, just to show you how very different everything is right now. On this day in history in 2024, Biden's national lead was 8.4 points. Hillary Clinton also had a comfortable lead over Donald Trump, 5.5 points. Today, in the five-way, Donald Trump leads by nearly 3, and in the head-to-head, Donald Trump leads by 1. What an astonishing difference. All right. Anyway, I just don't see again. I just don't. First, what the hell are they looking at? What the hell are they looking at? We've gone over this with the decision desk model, which we can even type in here if we want to check it out. We've gone over this before. Even with the decision desk modeling, let's pretend, and by the way, Donald Trump now has a 56% chance of winning the presidency. That's up another 3 points. They put it in as toss-ups. Nevada, even with their, their modeling for past vote history, it's still a coin toss. And the only reason, again, it's because of the strength Democrats have have had among Hispanics in Clark County. It is difficult for some to believe that the gains Donald Trump has made in Clark County and elsewhere are that high. It is difficult for the people to believe out there, but nevertheless, it has happened. So it is what it is. Georgia, I get too, but even, they had it like before they moved this into the Trump, it's not in the Trump camp. It's really in the toss-up camp, but Trump is a little bit ahead now. But in Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada, they had Biden with like basically a 50-50 chance, and he had like a 60-something chance of winning Nevada. That's crazy. They gave him a 60-something chance of winning Michigan. That is, of course, crazy. I can agree with 54. Michigan is a tough state. It's not, listen, 54 is nothing. So if you're Joe Biden, here's the kicker. The bottom line is, guys, these 3 states have voted together, even when even when 1 or 2 may be extremely close, they have voted together in every election since 1988, and that was a very weird circumstance with Michael Dukakis, and of course, that was Wisconsin. Wisconsin, ever since, has been one of the more Republican, even though it polls very badly for Republicans at the presidential level. Maine, they're keeping at 67 at this current time, and again, that would be vote history. But even historical vote preferences don't explain what 5-turd fake did to get a Biden 53% chance of victory outcome. It's just not. You must have unskewed the polls and weighted them down heavily in your model in order to come up with that result. Why? Because Joe Biden hasn't led in Nevada or Arizona for a year. For over 6 months now, these have been outside the sampling error. And by the way, so has been Georgia, just outside the sampling. Sometimes Georgia got a little closer, 4 points, but it was still outside the aggregate sampling error. So, I just don't know where they're getting this from. The big 3 Rust Belters, yeah, they swung back and forth. Trump needs one of them. Biden needs all 3. So when you're talking about probabilities, and what do I mean by that? Because let's say he doesn't even get Nevada. Okay, let's do a little game here. Can I make my own here? Yeah, let's go and make my own. Where's my predictions? Here we go. Let's get Nevada off the board and put it for Joe Biden. Let's give Trump, since he's leading outside the sampling error, both Arizona and Georgia. Okay. Biden needs all 3 of these. I just talked about Wisconsin being a tough race, a tough state to poll. Forget about Maine for a second. Forget about the DRI poll. Let's give Trump just Wisconsin because, hey, they get Trump with a 66% chance of winning Wisconsin.
Even though the polls have been swinging back and forth a little bit, Biden never has a big lead, but sometimes he takes like a 1 or 2 point lead. That's not good enough. He had a 17-point lead and he won it by 0.2% in 2020 in some polls. You know what I'm talking about. The ABC News Washington Post poll. Let's give Biden Michigan, since that's the one they have. Let's ignore the 63% chance that Trump carries Pennsylvania. Let's ignore that and let's give that to Biden. All right. Let's go with the modeling on historical vote preferences, even though Trump is ahead in Wisconsin. Let's go by it. And let's say he's not ahead. And we have to get, let's say he's not ahead, in those votes, because he's, the polls themselves, they tend to overstate Democratic support. But we let the model and its historical vote share, influence that. And it ends up being Trump just a little bit. Biden needs like a straight flush here. He's not getting North Carolina. Folks, North Carolina is one of those states that are exacerbated by national trends. Florida has been trending for a long time. That is not lean. That is a likely GOP state. All right. Arizona and Georgia are, could Biden win after not leading in a single poll? I guess I suppose. Is it likely? No. Because we have no evidence of Democratic presidential candidates having their vote share understated. There's no evidence of that. It's the other way around. This isn't a midterm. It's a presidential election. So Biden would need all of that. So when you're talking about probabilities, it's not even close. 56%, I'll give that. I'll say okay. But folks, come on. Give me a break. Oh my God, it's already 1:15. Let's finish. Let's take our break. A real word from our sponsors break. And then we come back, we'll hit your questions. Don't forget, Laura, she's all over it. And that's why we love her, folks. That's why we love her. She is all over it. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We will, of course, finish up, wrap up, and get some juicy ones. I hope you guys I haven't looked at them. I hope you guys have some juicy ones for me. All right, we'll be back. Stay tuned. All right, folks, we all heard it. We've all seen the headlines. AstraZeneca, their little development. So God knows what on earth they're going to do. Now it's the swine flu. But the chief medical board of the wellness company has been closely watching this avian flu H5N1 situation, potential outbreak in the United States over the few weeks, months. It's been the hot topic. And while it is far from certain that this will even turn into a pandemic, we know that the medical tyrants are never going to be done with us, man. They're ready with their stethoscopes to stick up here, you know what. And with the scientists still saying that this bird flu strain could be 100 times more deadly than COVID, and knowing it's an election year, Americans understand that now more than ever, we need to be prepared. Do you have what your family needs this time around? Because most doctors still wouldn't even consider giving you certain drugs like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. But that's okay because we have you covered. The only of its kind prescription drug contagion emergency kit from the Wellness Company provides you with a carefully selected assortment of effective medications for the bird flu, COVID-19, and other respiratory illnesses. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, the Z-Pack, Tamiflu, bedanoside, along with a new one, a nebulizer. So you can rest easy knowing that you have emergency med kits on hand along with that guidebook for safe use. Laura and I decided that we're going to have a couple of them. All right. Peace of mind, folks. It's peace of mind. Backed by research from experts like Dr. Peter McCullough, the Wellness Company's emergency kit is a must-have. Every American should have at least one of these kits in their home. Like I said, we have two. Avoid the chaos, the wait times, and the price of a hospital, and have exactly what you need for as low as the cost of a single doctor visit. At the end of the day, just having these life-saving medications on hand it means you don't have to think about it. So go to twc.health/TPP. That's twc.health/TPP. The link is, of course, in the description. And grab your contagion emergency kit right now. All right, that code, you're going to that link, twc.health/TPP. Using that TPP code will save you $30 at checkout. All right, the kits are unfortunately for you abroad, only available in the USA. But for those of you domestic viewers out there, you've got to go and grab this, get yourself some peace of mind, and you're good to go. All right, like I said, especially since we got kids, 2 kits on hand feels good. All right. Just talking to you about consumer sentiment. Conference board 2 is up next. Can't wait to see that doozy. It's no wonder that people are waiting and looking, waiting, holding their cards, and they're checking around to see what other options they may have. Stocks can be unpredictable. Inflation absolutely impacts the value of currencies. And that's why I want to talk to you about Freedom Gold USA too. If you ever thought about investing in gold and silver, or if you're just interested in diversifying your portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely the company that you should check out. And what I like about them, and I've dealt with a lot, what I like about them is that they really are all about just helping you make smart investment choices. They believe the more you know, the better. So they offer free investment guides, consultations. All right. They just want you to make a confident decision without any pressure. That's what's different, but there's also a few other reasons. They guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver that you can find on the market. You know you're getting a solid deal. You don't have to worry about extra fees. They offer free shipping and insurance on all orders, not just qualifying ones. Plus, you may even get some free silver on those qualifying purchases. They'll give you a $500 credit towards opening a new gold or silver IRA. That's a nice bonus. But again, here's the best part. Dealing with Freedom Gold USA is simple and it is hassle-free. You will not get any pushy sales tactics. And if you do, you let me know. But you won't. They're all about helping you reach your financial goals in a way that will work for you. So if you want to learn more, I recommend giving Freedom Gold a call. The number's on the screen, 888-279-3592. Or you could go check out their website they made just for the People's Pundit. That's freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Find out about their latest special offers. Maybe you do qualify for some free silver, but go check it out and see what kind of deals you qualify for. Let me give you that number again, 888-279-3592. Visit freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Don't wait. Give them a call or go to the website. Check out. Great company. Secure your financial future. All right. With that in mind, what were we looking at before? Let's put it back up and while we answer some questions. But I generally think, honestly, folks, when these things move, they all move. It is difficult to see a situation where Joe Biden does really hold all three of them and keeps Trump from not plucking off one of those states. Plus, the fact of the matter is that Trump is ahead in Nevada. All right. Maine could go, but we really, at this point, let's give it to Biden because it is Maine, the historical vote share. Let's give it to him. But states like North Carolina and Florida are off the table for Joe Biden. I don't care about the one poll that shows Biden up by 4 in Florida. Who has blown their, in Florida over the last? Everybody. There's like 2 pollsters who have polled Florida correctly. Me and Trafalgar. That's it, right? Trafalgar and I, Robert Cayley and I. That's it. I really think that's it. We'd have to go back and look. I think so. I'm not just talking about presidential elections too, but I really do think that's it. I'm trying to think of who else it is, but man, I don't think so. I really don't think so. All right. So with that in mind, let's take some questions. Let's keep the map up just in case. I think that's an honest and fair map. Although I mean, at this point, that's not, if you believe the polls, it looks more like this. And Virginia we give to Biden too. But let's for giggles say it's a total wipeout for Joe Biden. Let's see what it could look like, right? Let's say they got Maine and Virginia. Oh my God. What if you got Minnesota too? Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm starting to rethink the largest electoral count victory for a Republican president. I'm staring long and hard at this map, and I'm thinking this is probably the reality right here. I know we have some. New York is just so Democratic. Give me a second. That would be a good Trump scenario right there. Like, I mean, a really good Trump scenario. I mean, the simulations, if you look at the model, because I do see one of the questions about top electoral votes. Well, to answer that one, if you look at the model, this isn't enough. So in some of those simulations, something like this must have happened. Or not, It's like I could even see something like this happening before that. It's just that New Jersey's so blue too. You could get close. But the fact we're even talking about close is ridiculous. I don't know how I don't know. I'd have to go and look at the simulation itself, but I don't know how they're getting him closer to 380. I don't know what other states they're looking at here. No way. No. Come on. And I'm sorry for all you people out there who are like, we could do it in New York. I just don't buy it. At least in New Jersey, if you can hold it down in Bergen and some of the other blue areas, you keep Bergen close. You run it up in Monmouth, Mercer, Ocean. Towns like Jackson are growing in population. You could take areas of like by New Rochelle because of the swing in the non-white vote. You could do better there. There are working class Hispanic communities. By the way, Trump carried some of those legislative districts already, even when he got whopped. But New York is a different end. It's just so much tougher. I mean, I doubt now Trump would ever get to, because I'm looking at one of the simulations was 380 to 385 range. I just don't know how you do that unless you do this. And that to me is crazy. I'm sorry. That's just crazy. Because you can't, that would, at that point, it would be closer. You'd have to do something like this. And I just don't believe Colorado's on the table. I don't. I think New Mexico is on the table before Colorado. Too many white educated liberals in Colorado. Hispanics are really only like 2 out of 10. In New Mexico, on the other hand, where they're 4 out of 10, and whites are not as liberal as they are in Colorado. That Democrat strength in New Mexico has been completely reliant on the Hispanic vote. Whites were essentially split in 2020. Trump carried them in 2016. It's just that Clinton did so much better with Hispanics in New Mexico. Biden slipped. He slipped a lot. Gary Johnson's not on the ballot. Jill Stein is going to pull some from Biden. I don't see where they're getting that 380 range. I just don't see it. I don't think it's possible. I don't. I mean, of course, anything's possible. I just don't believe it. I don't. I think that's about as likely as Joe Biden winning with 300 and plus a little over 300 electoral votes, which is also, by the way, in those simulations. Actually, Joe Biden's potential electoral college vote is higher than Trump's when it comes to, actually, it would be more like this. Well, that's too much. I can't do that. The demographics are not there, Joe. Sorry. But we could do this. And we could do this. We'd have to go back to, well, no, we do this. We do that. What am I missing here? Then we would give Joe, if he was having a really good night. I can't give him all the Sunbelt states in this environment. You can't do it. You just cannot do it. That's still a very close election. What they're talking about with that one just far out model is that he holds it Arizona and Georgia. That would give him 302. That is, on the higher end for Joe Biden about what he could do. Nebraska. What am I missing? Nothing. He has nowhere else on the map he could go. And don't give it to me. I don't want to hear it, liberals. I don't want to hear it. Texas is not going blue, even in a good environment for Joe Biden. There's just too many Trump moving Hispanics in Texas. I'm sorry. And in Florida, you could move them to lean. If you're being real nice to Joe, you could move North Carolina to lean. But even in a decent environment where Democrats were able to use their ground game to close the gap, like in 22, they still got utterly crushed all over North Carolina. Crushed. There's nothing else here. He's not getting Missouri, Indiana. Those days are over. Long gone. That's the best map I could do for Joe Biden. At this point. I mean, maybe. No, you don't. Let's see. If we were to even give him in Georgia and Arizona. Wow, that's still a shit of a win. Oops. Sorry. Whoops. Of course. That's there. 303. That's crazy, though. That's not going to happen. Again, I'm sorry. It's just not. Not with what we're seeing right now. Economy would have to come roaring back at like 5% GDP. Uh-oh. Just give the economic or the Bureau of Economic Analysis a nice lie to tell the public. But the forecast for GDP in the final quarter is awful. Awful. Let's look at the... Yep. Let's look at the GDP Fed now forecast. It is up a little, isn't it? 3.1. That's up a lot, actually. Oh, that's estimate for real GDP in the second quarter. Okay. 3.1, up from 2.6 after the employment situation, but that will be revised down. That's why it keeps going around the way it keeps going. It will be revised down. You know, that's what happens with that. Unless I'm wrong and the Bureau of Economic Analysis does not revise it down. We'll just have to see. All right, that's one of the questions, and I spent a lot of time on it. So let's go back to the top. Locals from Ryan. Thanks for the tip. I sent you an email about quoting Minnesota CD. I didn't see that. BPOUs. I don't know what that means. I don't know what does BPOU mean, guys? Laura, you have any idea what BPOU means? I'm sorry if I'm just not familiar with the lingo. Locals? What's BPOU? Come on, help me out here. I see typing. Come on, type away. Let's go. About to refresh it. I have no idea. I really don't know. But I will look in my email and get back to you. All right? It may have went to spam. Some of those things go base political org. Okay. So you're proposing that you use the base political org because the state party is useless. Okay. I'll check out the email and I'll get back to you. Remember, though, I do have the Turning Point poll that I have to get in the field like ASAP as soon as I'm done with the show today. The goal was actually try to, get done a little bit early, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen because I'm in a pinch here. Who was the pollster that said Republicans shouldn't fear large turnouts and that restricting young voters might hurt them? He's spot on. Big news coming out of Germany's Euro election. The left-wing coalition lowered the age to vote to 16, thinking they would benefit, but the AfD were the big winners, taking 17 of the 16 to 24, same as the CDU, and way ahead of the coalition. Forget the tags. Spinnaker. Yep. I think that, it's funny. I was talking to this group of younger voters yesterday, and I had to try to explain to them because they're very cynical about the future, and they think everything's out of control. One of the major topics was transgender BS they got to deal with. They're a tiny minority. They're way overrepresented, and everyone feels afraid to speak up, and they're tired of it. Biden's an idiot. Like, how could the adults in this country elect somebody who's basically a mental, you know what? I'm not gonna say it. And I had to try to convince them, like, listen, you have no idea the power you hold right now. They want you to give up. That's what they want you to do because their young voters are going to vote. They want the normies to give up. So 18 to 24 is in 54-46 instead of it being 65-35. Where should Trump have a rally in Chicagoland during the Dem convention? Man, I'd park my ass in an urban area. You always get, like they'll go to Lake or something like that. And that's all very well and fine. Maybe do two back to back. But I'm telling you, listen, guys, I don't know if you caught on to this by now. I'm all about taking the fight to people in every aspect of my life. And whether no matter what it is, work, politics, whatever it may be. I would rally right in Chicago. They want to riot, let them riot. Let them riot. Last time he had to cancel it because he was afraid of he was worried about the police, their safety of the police. Listen, not that I'm saying anything terrible here. What I'm saying is let them hurt the police. They do it anyway. Make sure it's on full display. I'm sorry. Sorry. Don't yell at me for saying it. Yell at your activists for being violent. The guy can't hold a rally because you're afraid of the message getting to black voters and Hispanic voters in Chicago? That's on you, man. You're the bad person there, not me. By the way, Fox News used to put on the brother of the guy who organized that riot every day. I don't think it, but I keep hearing people say they're going to replace Biden with someone else, most likely at the Dem convention. Can you please give me some talking points? You know, the bottom line is those are people who don't understand the complicated nature of the nomination process, even for Democrats at this time. Rather than just tell them that broadly, but rather than, and relying solely on that, because they won't understand what you're saying. So, again, we filter through our own belief systems. It's going to be hard to explain that to them. The other argument is millions, tens and tens of millions of people have voted for Joe Biden. The political cost to saying, oh, we don't care about your vote is too high. Because people will say, I voted for him. And the hell with you now. I'm not going to vote. Dean Phillips gave it a run. He had too much of a strangle on the party. He lost. End of story. And by the way, here's another one. There is no way Joe Biden is going to voluntarily leave this race. His son just was found guilty of a BS crime, but his son was just found guilty of it. And he knows full well that if Trump gets back in office, his legal exposure is through the roof. Joe Biden, Jim Biden, Hunter Biden, the Biden family has been taking money, bribes, extorting people, peddling influence, pay to play. They've been doing this for years. They got immensely rich over it. You need to check out Laura Ingram's segment from earlier in the week after the Biden verdict if you didn't before. She's 100% correct. These are people with no skills, crappy educations. Joe Biden was one of the stupidest people in his entire class, and yet he's been able to amass a massive fortune. And that is because he is selling his influence. Jim, his brother, is selling his brother's influence. Hunter, he's selling his father's influence. And actually, Hunter is mostly just a bag boy idiot. But there you go. There are three right there. He's never going to let himself be exposed to a Trump DOJ. And this is right. So if VA is a toss-up, Arizona and Georgia are solidly in Trump's camp. That's absolutely true. Biden hasn't led in a single poll in Arizona. We're talking about Virginia. If we're talking about Virginia, we're going to win. Yeah, that's Larry Schweiker, by the way. Larry, I agree with Larry 100%. This is absolutely insane. It's unbelievable how much they're willing to ignore the polls when it favors Democrats. Yet, even when the polls, and because they're not even outrageous right now, they're realistic. When they were outrageous and unrealistic in 2020, they took it at face value. Trump is down 17 in Wisconsin. Well, add that to the 13-point deficit in Michigan. Yeah, okay. They bought every single vote. Like it was gospel. Larry's right. What does Rich think about this election? It has become a men versus woman election. Men are flocking to Trump and women are sticking with Biden. I actually don't agree with that. Not in our polling anyway. Men in a lot of research appear to be getting more liberal. Trump coasted to the nomination on the back of women. There's the gender gap has been something that has characterized our elections for years. And I think we're going to see it. The question is, how big is that gap going to get? And I really don't think if Trump wins, he's going to win on the back of a a gender gap that's so male, favoring him. I don't. I think he's going to close. Some of these polls show Trump doing the best with women since George Herbert Walker Bush in 1988. So that's huge. And that, again, is largely because we always, when we're talking about the black vote and the Hispanic vote, everyone focuses on men. But the truth is, the men have been kind of the tip of the spear in that trend, which has been going on now for a while. And women are coming now. So it's not just men. Dan, let's say Putin launches a major offensive in Ukraine to the point that the media can't deny we're in World War III. Do you see that crediting a rally to the flag? Do you see that creating a rally to the flag effect for Biden, or it contributing to the sense of world on fire, or no impact unless it results in a direct attack on the U.S.? No, I do think there would be an impact. I think that it would contribute to this idea that, hey, you told us that Donald Trump was the world destabilizer, and that Biden was going to come in, fix NATO, and get the world under control. Our allies are going to trust us again. They know they can rely on us again, right? And what that means is he's going to let them free ride off of us. But what has happened? NATO is now free riding again, and they are the aggressor. There's no Warsaw Pact in our hemisphere, ladies and gentlemen. NATO is in their hemisphere. We are the aggressor. I think it would contribute, Dan. I don't think that this rally to the flag effect under Biden is going to be a possibility, unless there's a direct, like you said, the one scenario. If there was a direct attack on the U.S., you would get a rally around the flag. I mean, everybody did and does. Did. So like it passes prologue, they'll get it, man. 9/11 size? I don't know. It depends on the event, but I don't know. And by the way, George Bush had a 90% approval rating because of rally around the flag effect, and he only won re-election by 10,000 votes. He was never as unpopular as Biden is right now. That was the Wednesday version of this day in history. Obama's approval rating was 47, almost 8, 47.6, so almost 48. Even Donald Trump's was 44. Biden's is 38. He's got a longer way to go. Bush's approval rating was 48%, something like that at this point. Yeah, so it would be very difficult, very difficult. It would have to be a bad attack. And then there will be people who blame him for it anyway because he's such an idiot. I mean, Dan, it's a hard question to answer because normally I'd say you'd get the rally around the flag, but we also have not had a mentally retarded idiot, and I don't mean that insultingly. I'm serious. By the true definition of the words, we haven't seen one in office ever. So people may be like, God, this is the result of a senile dementia patient being in the Oval Office and letting these other morons who think they're so smart make his policy. It's tough. It's good. It's a great question, though, Dan. As usual, it's a great question. Garrett, locals from CCO. Will Nebraska 2 flip back? If Trump flips Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, he's at 268. I'll need Nebraska 2. I'm not sure if we're worried about Nebraska 2. You may have bigger fish to fry. So it could, it could. But God, it's so professional class now. So credit card capital of the world, Garrett Days. Also, there's a very niche, but would you all be interested in covering previous presidential elections and major stories? I'd like to know what America would like in a better time. Oh, you'd like to know what America was like in a better time. You know what, Garrett? Oh, I'm sorry, itchy nose. I will consider that. All right. Maybe having some flashback session every once in a while. Yeah, even maybe once in a show where we can watch, ABC react to Ronald Reagan winning or something like that. And it's also really good to look back at compilation videos. Like I liked the great Tim Russer. I did. Flaming lib. But I liked him. And I'm just thinking you could watch this in montage clip, something like this, of him being happy and giddy as the exit polls come in at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. And then as time went on throughout the night, you could see Mr. Meet the Press just going into the doldrums with despair and depression. It's pretty funny. There's also, too, because I was thinking about the consumer sentiment, Trump had gone to Wisconsin during that time and held a rally just because he had been he didn't like the idea of being stuck in the White House. It was before Christmas. Huge Christmas trees on either side of him on the stage. Gorgeous, beautiful white lights, warm white, the clear. We used to call them white, but they're really clear now. White is more like an ice or a blue. Take it from the Christmas decoration king, I know. It was just absolutely gorgeous. Things like that. I'd take that into consideration. Do you think Obama or whoever else is controlling Biden thought they had more time to use him as a figurehead before he was fully burned? Yes, fully burnt out. Yes, I do. Because I think they thought they had at least 5 to 6 good years. I know too many people who knew I was right when I said that Biden was still the strongest one against Trump. And that is terrible. It says something about the Democratic bench. But Gavin Newsom is not going to be viable. So I think they thought they could get rid of Joe Biden, put whoever in before the first term is up, get them to know the country, make the progressive wing happier. You know what I mean? Do everything you would have to do while you're biding your time. And now I think that's, they needed at some point to shit or get off the pot, and they waited too long. So now it's just too long. Looking at the Maine poll, why does Trump have a higher approval than Susan Collins? She won the last election by a bit, but Trump lost. Retrospective. That's why. That's a good question, though, but retrospective. Can you ask Rich for me what he thinks of Montana at this point, especially after the primary turnout? Tester's a tough guy to beat. He's a tough guy to beat, guys. What she's got going for him is that Trump is going to be on the ballot. Now, this is why I do think they will try to imprison Trump next month. I do. Because they need him off the campaign trail, and maybe even to make him look ridiculous and embarrass him. A little bit more than just slapping the felon with a felon. I mean, God. Looking for content, listen to CNN to get a clip for the show. It's just constant. Convicted felon. Convicted felon. The country can't vote for a convicted felon. I mean, it was so obvious what they intended to do. And it's stunning to them that it doesn't work. Gustavo, what do you think about the Milwaukee shithole hoax textbook? There's no chance. Let me just tell you something right now. There is no chance that Donald Trump said that. Zero. Jake Sherman is a liar. Jake Sherman from Fox News, he is a liar. I have been blocked by Jake Sherman because I called him out on so many lies. All right. It's a good question, though. Thomas Kelly, thanks, Tom, for the 5. Trump is going to expand the battleground in New Mexico. When do you think we may get a poll from the state? Well, we'll see. We got to get the national one first, but we'll see. But for now, never mind. I was going to suggest something, but let's not. It probably will be a bit. Yeah, we may actually get done in time, Laura, so I can hop on and do that. What do you think of incoming tax removal proposal? What do you think of the incoming tax removal proposal? Are you talking about the don't tax tips proposal? I love it. I love everything about it. And I love it in practice, too. It's not that I just think it's a great political move, but I wish we had ourselves more like a fair or flat tax across the board. But we don't. We have what's called the so-called progressive tax system, which is BS. There's nothing progressive about it. I love the idea of that. If you want to do better in Clark County, you advocate for that law. All right. But right. The other one is the counter. Biden will try to steal elements of that. I guarantee it. All right, it's 1:48. We could end early. I can get on the poll for Charlie. Don't forget book club, 3:33 Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. Gorka I'll be on Gorka shortly after that on the reality check with Dr. Sebastian Gorka. That is on Newsmax. What else? What am I missing here? Don't forget, Public Polling Project, Farm Y. I actually saw some stuff coming in as we were talking. If you can get us close within, roughly $1,000 range or so, and I know you don't know that because I don't want to confuse people. The next one, I will put up a new form, but the form that we have there is for the form that we did like 4 or 5 other polls, a ridiculous amount. So it was like nowhere near funded. So I'm going to leave it up right now anyway. And it could, because you can see it never hit that funding amount. So basically everything you're looking at right now, probably 80% of it is from the campaign, the crowdfunding campaign that we started when we wanted to do a poll like 4 times back. So it's way up there, but we need to make sure you know how to keep track. So we'll do that. Share it far and wide. Do what you can. And like I said, a minute of your time, folks, just a minute of your time. If you're watching on Rumble, go over to YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, go over to Rumble, cross subscribe, smash the like button. You know how to do it. But the best place, of course, to follow me, like Laura's got on the screen right now, is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. And with that, everybody have a safe weekend. Don't do anything crazy. Enjoy your summer weekend. It's by me. It's absolutely beautiful out. I'm going to get my work wrapped up. I'm going to get the poll cruising in the field. And then maybe later tonight, I'll take myself a little late night dip. All right. Barbecue, maybe. I think I'll barbecue something maybe this weekend if I can. That sounds like fun. Wings or a brisket? I don't know, Laura. What do you think? I'm dying to smoke a brisket. What's that? Brisket. That's my girl. So sexy when you ask for a brisket, baby. All right, let's boogie. I don't think I'm missing anything except for this. None but love for you. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you on Monday. All right? Deuces. Deuces. I can't hear Laura, so let me do Laura's. Deuces.